Thank you, Jamal. Let's give a round of applause to Jamal. And so it's Latitia, but everybody calls me Tish. So it's great to be here. Any Democrats in the house? Chemung County?
Yeah!
In the right place?
Yeah.
Chemung. Now what?
Elmira.
Elmira, New York.
There you
What
go.
you know about Elmira?
I'm sure you're going to tell me. So, first, let me just say, this morning I was in Syracuse. I attended a funeral of a 17-year-old girl who went to, 10 days earlier, I just graduated from high school. She went to a store at 10 p.m. On July 4th that evening and was shot in the back twice and died. So I had to go to Syracuse to talk to the young people, to talk to them about gun violence, and to let them know that there was another way. And also to talk about individuals, individuals in Syracuse who were afraid to speak out, who were afraid to snitch, afraid to talk to law enforcement, despite the fact that I believe some of them knew who the assailant was. And it was important that they see me and that I talk to them about gun violence, and that I've been to too many funerals all throughout my career, too many to count, of young people who have laid before me and parents who I've had to hold in my arms as a result of senseless gun violence. And people with cell phones. But also social media and bullying. And I want all of you to know that I, along with other attorney generals, and it's a bipartisan effort, we are looking at social media and the effects on young people. Young people who don't have social skills and who are addicted to social media. Young people who are addicted because they get algorithms which target them and that are curated towards them. And so we are looking at a couple of social media platforms and its impact on children, particularly young girls who've committed suicide, self-mutilation, define themselves based on what they see on social media. And so we're looking to see whether or not we can correct some of the conduct of these social media platforms, and if we can address the hate that's on social media. I'm not sure whether or not, because it is a bipartisan effort, whether or not we can focus on disinformation or misinformation, because, you know, the facts aren't the facts these days. But we'll do whatever we can. And New York, as you know, because you have an attorney general who unfortunately doesn't have much of a life, we are leading the effort along with others, so thank you so much.
We appreciate you.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Chairman Malik for all that he is doing. He certainly is a history maker and a freedom fighter, and let's give him another round of applause. He's done an incredible job, a masterful job leading this committee, and we're thankful for his dedication to the Democratic Party. And I know that it is difficult out here. I know that it is challenging out here, but I applaud each and every one of you. I also have to recognize Jim and Mary Carr. Their tireless efforts and persistent help makes Democrats better across New York every single day. And my friends, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for the work that you do. I know that it is difficult. I passed a couple of signs. Yeah, you all have kept the faith, and you keep meeting, and you keep fighting for democratic values and for all that we believe in, and you are on the front line, and I know that it takes courage, but I just want you to know that this Attorney General obviously believes in all that you do, and I am thankful each and every day for the hard work. It takes courage to stand up to individuals and to swat down the big lie. It takes courage, obviously, in town and in schools and at meetings and even in church. It takes courage. It takes courage to keep driving past places where you see the signs like I saw today, yard signs that attack our basic principles and our basic freedoms and our liberty. It takes courage, obviously, to stand up and speak truth and to talk about facts that are undebatable, but nonetheless people unfortunately dismiss them. But nonetheless, I applaud each and every one of you, and I am truly honored and privileged and humbled by this outpouring of support. And I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I know that it takes courage, obviously, to stand on the side of justice. I wake up each and every day standing on the side of justice, representing the Constitution and defending the Constitution and defending our beliefs each and every day. So I know that some of you are overlooked. We're under assault. Our values are under assault. We've seen recent decisions from the United States Supreme Court decision that make you want to scream. But nonetheless, we've got to continue. We must persist. Because we are on the side of the angels, we are on the side of righteousness, we are on the side of justice, we are on the side of the law, and we are on the side of the Constitution. And so with truth and facts, each and every time they're knocked to the ground, they rise. And so they will rise again, because we speak truth to justice, and we speak truth each and every day. And so I just really want to thank you again, and I want to tell you a little bit about some of the work that I've been doing. I've been a little busy. I don't know if you noticed. Just last month, I went to Batavia and Utica, in county, and as I indicated, I started my day in Syracuse to talk about gun violence with young people. And I joined with Governor Hochul. Did you see her editorial today, her op-ed in the New York Times today? She wrote a wonderful op-ed today in defense of red flag laws. And it was a wonderful op-ed, and we are really proud of her. Our office defends these red flag laws. For those of you who do not know, red flag laws basically allow law enforcement officers to take guns away from individuals who are a harm to themselves and or to others. And following the Bruin decision in the United States Supreme Court, our governor obviously has today wrote a wonderful decision about her history and about all that her family has done to address the needs of individuals who are struggling with mental illness, and individuals who have been victims of domestic violence, and individuals who might be a harm to themselves and others. And that's why, as the Attorney General, we go into court each and every day to defend the red flag laws and defend the laws of the state of New York. And as the chief law enforcement officer, and as someone who has in the city of New York and throughout the state of New York has witnessed individuals who have committed harm to themselves with guns, individuals who have committed suicide, individuals who unfortunately are struggling with mental illness and depression, it's really critically important that we have these red flag laws in place. And so I want to thank the governor of the state of New York for that op-ed today. I also visited, and tomorrow in Owego County we'll be visiting a rehab center, and I've been visiting rehabilitation centers all across this state because as when I ran for the office of public advocate, Attorney General, I made a commitment to families of those who were struggling with the opioid addiction, and I made a commitment that I would go after and file the most extensive lawsuit against opioid manufacturers and distributors. And in fact, we did just that, and we settled that case to the tune of $2.6 billion.
Yes.
To fund treatment, recovery, and prevention, and I want to thank members of the state legislature because they decided to place those funds in a lockbox for the purposes of education, prevention, treatment, and beds. And those funds will not be diverted for street potholes or whatever, even though that's important. That's very important. But also prevention is really critically important, and particularly beds, because during the COVID period, what we uncovered, my office uncovered, was that they were taking mental health beds offline, and those beds were converted to to COVID beds, and those beds have not been returned for individuals who are struggling with mental illness because the reimbursement rate is higher. And as a result of that, when we had a hearing in Buffalo and in the city of New York with regards to mental health, what I uncovered was that there were insufficient beds primarily for young people, pediatric beds, and beds for senior citizens. And what was so sad was one particular woman who testified at the hearing, and she said, Tish, the only way that I could get services for my child who was struggling with mental illness was to surrender my child to the state. And so what she did literally was, because she could not get services for a child who was in the throes of mental illness and needed it. Her child was 13 and was engaging in a lot of self-harm. She literally just left her child on the steps of a hospital in Buffalo. And that was the only way that she can get services. And in a state as rich as New York, that really should not be the case. And so these funds, these $2.6 billion funds, thank you, my love, $2.6 billion in opioids funds will be used again for prevention, treatment, and beds to address individuals who are struggling with mental illness each and every day here in the great state of New York. And I'm here to announce that in Chemung County, hundreds of thousands of dollars will go to this county for that purpose. And there is more to come. Earlier this month, I was in Rochester to announce the takedown of a major narcotics trafficking ring. The takedown resulted in 177 charges against 48 defendants. The trafficking network operated across all of upstate New York. We seized more than 10 kilograms of fentanyl and more than 10 kilograms of cocaine with a total value of more than $9 million. We also seized illegal firearms, including assault weapons and ghost guns. What are ghost guns? Those are those unserialized guns which pose as a threat to our law enforcement officers. They're unserialized and they're undetected. And you can basically manufacture a gun online, which is ridiculous. And so just a few weeks ago, my office took an additional 3,000 guns off of the streets. Why? We seize basically money from all of these takedowns of individuals who are engaging in illegal activity. We take those funds and we use them for gun buybacks. Some law enforcement officers say to me, oh, Tish, gun buybacks, those are your grandmother's guns. Well, as of today, we have removed over 7,000 guns off of the streets of New York, and they've included assault weapons as well as ghost guns. So not your grandmother's guns. 185 assault rifles through our first ever statewide gun buyback on one given day. We hosted 9 gun buybacks across every region of the state in one day. Keeping our community safe is my top priority, and I believe in standing up for the Second Amendment. In no way does this infringe upon an individual's Second Amendment right. But I also need your help, my friends, because we have a new threat on our streets: xylazine. What is xylazine? Xylazine is an animal tranquilizer which eats away at your skin. And individuals right now are unfortunately mixing cocaine and fentanyl with xylazine. Xylazine is legal because it's an animal tranquilizer. It is not illegal. It is a legal drug for animals. And people are purchasing it from or getting it from China or illegally online. And they're lacing their drugs with this animal tranquilizer. And I'm proud to lead a bipartisan coalition of 39 attorney generals, because it's not just affecting New York, but it's all across our nation now, to protect communities from the dangers of xylazine. And in fact, on Tuesday, I will be attending a meeting at the White House because President Biden recognizes this problem, and he is going to be announcing a national response plan to xylazine across our nation this Tuesday, and it will include a wide range of issues. Xylazine is a powerful animal sedative, and on the street it's known as tranq. And it basically turns individuals into zombies, literally zombies, and it eats away at your flesh. And so what the president is focusing on, obviously, is trying to reduce the amount of drugs that are coming in, xylazine coming into this country, doing some data collection, some evidence-based prevention, treatment, supply reduction, and also some research here in this country, some best practices with respect to treatment, and also wound care, because a lot of physicians just don't know how to deal with the wounds that they are seeing, again, as a result of individuals who unfortunately have been, or who are addicted to tranq. Some are calling it the zombie drug because it induces a stupor and often leaves those, again, using the drugs with these terrible open flesh wounds. And xylazine is being mixed with these drugs because it produces a greater high. And it's unfortunate that so many individuals who are addicted to drugs are now using the xylazine. I say this just because I need all of you to spread the word about the dangers of xylazine. We've got to get in front of it. We've got to talk about it. We've got to talk about it to kids and schools. We've got to let people know about the dangers of xylazine, and we need to use resources from the federal government for treatment and prevention and for education. We cannot sit idly by and allow this new drug called tranq to destroy our communities. And so I'm urging, please, 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 I need your help. I'm also, as you know, very much focused on children and seniors. And last week, I'm sure you saw, we announced a lawsuit against Centers Nursing Home, which operates 4 nursing homes across New York State. And I was particularly disturbed about the conditions that we witnessed at these 4 nursing homes. These owners for years have engaged in a pattern and practice of fraud, self-dealing, illegality that caused significant harm to residents. They diverted more than, ready, $83 million in Medicaid and Medicare funds to enrich themselves, their families, and their business associates through a network of businesses and fraudulent transactions, rather than use taxpayer dollars to unfortunately increase staffing for residents as it was intended. And you should see some of these seniors. They were skeletal. They had bed sores. There were some that were suffering from dementia who were on the streets by themselves. They were naked. They sat in feces and urine. Their beds hadn't been cleaned or they hadn't been changed in days. And then I found out that one of the owners bought a damn airline with $83 million. It's unconscionable. So we brought lawsuits against these individuals, and I'm proud to say that a judge most recently has decided to appoint a monitor, a financial monitor, and a monitor with respect to the operations of these 4 nursing homes. And there are other nursing homes that are in my eyesight across the state of New York. When it comes to senior citizens, that's a sore spot of mine. And so if you harm seniors and you harm children, and I become aware of it, then you can best know that I will use the law both as a sword and as a shield to protect vulnerable populations such as seniors in nursing homes who are all by themselves. And because you use public dollars, those public dollars are there for the protection of seniors and not to enrich you. So please send a warning to any nursing home owner that you know, that if they don't clean up their act, that you've got a friend known as Tish James who is willing, ready, and able to come and inspect.
Get him, Tish.
We've done a lot. We also, we've had some bad Supreme Court decisions standing up for the LGBT plus community. In the state of New York, obviously, I oppose and abhor hate. I stand with the LGBTQ community. In New York City, I did a drag show because, I did a drag show. Why? Because two members of the city council did a drag show, a story hour to children where they were reading to children. And there were individuals who basically said that they were grooming children, which was ridiculous. And as a result of that, these 2 city council members, their homes were attacked. Their families were attacked. Their homes were, unfortunately, they sprayed graffiti on their homes, and they attacked their businesses. And so I decided to do a drag story hour because I believe in literacy and I believe in love. And of course, this was not an attempt to groom any child at all. This was an attempt to read a book to a child by a butterfly. There's nothing wrong with that. And also I believe in health affirming care for members of the trans community, which is really also critically important. I also believe that we should do all that we can do to reduce student debt, crushing student debt from individuals here in the state of New York, and we are doing all that we can do to reduce state debt. Reproductive rights, I will always stand with a woman's right to choose. It's basically her body and her decision, and I do not believe that anyone other than her, the woman, and her doctor and her guard, obviously should have any decision over her body and over her decisions. And so I believe that individuals should have full autonomy over their bodies, and I will support a woman's right to choose each and every time. And then lastly, I believe, obviously, I support the efforts in the state of New York to have it codified in our Constitution, and I will be joining those. I also am defending the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. As you know, there are efforts to basically remove funding for the CFPB, which is the organization that was created as a result of Dodd-Frank under the great work of great Senator Elizabeth Warren. And there are individuals, Republicans out there who seek to tear it down and to defund it. I defend CFPB, I defend the work of Elizabeth Warren, because I know of all of the fraud, the consumer fraud that is being targeted at each and every one of you, particularly as it relates to payday loans, etc. And it's really critically important that we protect your rights, your consumer rights, and that we, again, defend the Consumer Financial Protection Board. And then lastly, affirmative action. I believe, again, in diversity. Diversity is our strength, and I believe it adds to the educational experience. And so here in the state of New York, I will be joining with others in establishing a task force to make sure that our schools, again, continue to be diverse and represent the interest of all individuals in the state of New York.
Amen.
So, and lastly, the Supreme Court again has attacked the Environmental Protection Bureau, and we must do all that we can do to protect our natural resources. And as the Attorney General of the state of New York, I plan to do just that. The water that we drink, the air that we breathe, it is really critically important. You saw what happened most recently in Orange County. Climate change is real. Climate change is real. And so we've got to do all that we can do to protect the environment here in the state of New York. And as the Attorney General of the state of New York, I do that each and every day. So, I said a lot.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, can I take some questions?
Absolutely.
Questions? Yes, ma'am.
Well, you're looking at nursing, private nursing homes. Are you also looking at nursing homes that are run by counties and hospitals?
Yes, all nursing homes.
Good.
Okay. Do you have any in mind?
I sure do. Somewhere in Chemung.
Okay, let's talk. We have a charities bureau, and we have a Medicaid fraud bureau. So if it involves Medicaid fraud, we have jurisdiction. Yes.
As an old war horse of the party, I just want to salute you for coming to visit Democrats here in Chemung County and just meeting and relating with them. I think it's terrific.
I appreciate it. You got a pep shirt on, and I love labor.
And we are the retirees. I'm in charge of the retirees around the state of New York.
You're an important person.
Not like you. My comment is a follow-up on our Commissioner, Mr. Hare, there is getting Democrats to vote. And getting them to vote in every election, not just on election year, and vote Democrat.
Right.
Any advice?
Yeah, let's just talk about labor. So we've got to talk about the importance of labor, and there is an attack on labor. This is not a right to work state, because a right to work state is nothing more than a right to work for less state. And so we support labor, and the reason why all of you have your protections, the reason why you've got a pension, the reason why you've got Social Security, minimum wage, child care protections, and the reason why you've got a weekend off is because of labor. We must defend labor each and every time. We're interested tied to the middle class. The reason why we've got a strong middle class is because of labor, and that's why we've got to tell individuals about all that Democrats have done. Now, let's talk about this election. Okay. So everybody wants to tell me about President Biden and ageism. I don't want to hear it.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear it, because the other guy who is leading the polls is just as, amen. But no one talks about him, and he's not as smart. President Biden is a decent, honorable man, and we've got to talk about all that he has done. Right? And we've got to stand with him, and we've got to work with him, we've got to knock on doors, and we've got to talk about all that he has done and all that we have done in New York, and what is at stake if we go backwards. And we cannot go backwards, because this individual, well, I'm not going to talk to you about this individual because I have litigation against this individual. And so whenever I talk about this individual, well, it's a civil action. It's civil. My trial is scheduled for October 2nd. We are seeking $250 million, and we are also seeking injunctive relief in that he and his family members not do business in the state of New York. So he's got a very busy calendar.
Yes, he does.
You give him a boot out of New York?
Yeah, no comment.
I just want to echo everybody this evening and providing all this insight. My question is, you seem to get involved in a lot of smaller community actions and with the lawsuits with the retirement homes and stuff. So my town is a very small town. Like we're 3,400, somewhere around there, Jim. We have a big meth problem, and we have a massive property blight problem. What kind of tools can we make available not only to our law enforcement, but to our zoning officers to be able to help clean this stuff up instead of bringing them in front of a judge? And when they come in front of the judge, they just tell the judge to F off, and there's no repercussions. How can we turn that page?
So we need to talk about a criminal justice system which focuses on rehabilitation, and we also need to talk about all my housing initiatives. During the foreclosure debacle, we sued a number of banks, and as a result of that, we have some resources available. So what I've been doing as the Attorney General is taking those resources and using it for intended purposes, for certain missions, to do rehabilitative justice, to talk about, focus on an individual and provide a more holistic approach to the criminal justice system as opposed to just locking them up. Taking individuals who unfortunately have been addicted to drugs and using them to build things, build homes, rehabilitation, stuff like that. So we have resources available, and I would like to talk to you further about how we can work together to assist you in your effort in addressing meth. And, again, that $2.6 billion is for that purpose, and it's supposed to go to each and every county. And one of the things that I am trying to do, working with this task force, which is responsible for the distribution of the funds based on the number of people who are chemically addicted and or mentally ill, is for prevention, treatment, beds, etc., and housing, which is so critically important. Supportive housing, residential housing, treatment, all of that and more. That's what this $2.6 billion. And so if some of these funds I can direct your way, I will join with you to do just that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, maybe you've already said this. You've said a lot, and it's all been heckishly impressive. What I'm very concerned about too is an overall sense of education and the way books are being banned.
Yeah.
and I was wondering, is there any way that we can be proactive? I know here we get a lot of really wonderful library supporters, and we have a great system. However, what I'm seeing is, what I've been reading, is that just a few people can make a lot of noise and end up getting a book ban.
Yeah.
And I grew up in an era when books were not available. I can remember when some of the books that I wanted to read, and my mother didn't want me to, were banned. And when the Catholic Church had a lot to say about who read what. But I would think in a democratic society, anything we want to read should be available to us, and I'm very concerned about this push. Is there anything that you know about this, or anything that we could do more actively to make sure that when this kind of thing happens, we actually can get enough support?
Yeah, so I was at a county, I can't remember the county the other day, where they were banning books. It is a red county, and there's an effort to not only ban books, but to ban history.
Yes.
And also attempts, there were efforts to basically engage in campaigns against the members of the LGBTQ community. So there was a restaurant that was owned by a trans individual, and that had been targeted, and I decided to go there to have lunch and to bring the press with me. But then I learned about the librarians and all of these librarian committees and these school board committees that were formulating to basically ban books. And when I attended this restaurant, there were individuals who came to meet me, and what they were planning on doing was organizing on the ground, because there were so many individuals who thought that they were alone. And when they discovered that there were so many disparate groups out there, they decided to come together. And there were 2 individuals from that group who decided to run for office on the school board and push back and to organize underground. And they were successful in winning that election.
So you're saying that one of the things we need to focus on, not just state, not just national,
Local.
but local school boards especially.
Because they start at not at local community boards, local school boards, local elections, and then they work their way up the totem pole. But we've got to stop them. And it's all about facts, and again, it's all about making sure that individuals are exposed to a wide array of books and history.
And that they're voting.
And that they're voting. That's so important.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Latitia, our granddaughters are interested in your background.
Yeah.
How you started, where you were born, et cetera, et cetera. Could you go through some of that so they have some hope that they could
Sure.
maybe get
So,
there?
who is Latitia James? I was born in Brooklyn. I still live in Brooklyn. It's home. It's home. I'm one of 8. My parents, my mom worked for the telephone company. My father did construction and also worked in buildings. My mom just taught me to fight back and to stand up. I ran for city council the first time in Brooklyn and lost. I lost to a gentleman who was then murdered. His name was James Davis. He was a police officer. He coined the phrase, "Stop the violence, love yourself." The individual shot him in City Hall. He was on the front page of New York Times and Daily News and whatever. The gentleman who shot him came to my house the night before, and sat on my stoop, and we talked for 3 hours. And he asked me if I was going to run for office again. He disliked James Davis so much. And I said, no, I was in school at Columbia. And I said, no. And then he just said, I hate that James, I hate that James, I hate that James. And he left my house. And then the next day, James was shot, and police called me. They said, you know who did it? And I said, I think I do. And it was him. So then his brother decided to run the Democratic Party, embraced his brother out of sympathy. The Working Families Party embraced me because I had run and lost, and had lost by think 700 votes, 800 votes. I ran in a third-party line and won. 10 years in the city council. My claim to fame is I challenged a developer who was building the Barclays Arena because they took homes from poor people through the abuse of eminent domain. I challenged the Bloomberg administration who overturned the term limits. And I uncovered the biggest scam in the city of New York, known as City Time, where we uncovered over $500 million for taxpayers in New York City. I then ran for public advocate of the city of New York, first woman of color to run in the city of New York. I won public advocate, passed more laws than all previous public advocates combined, did a bunch of stuff, the worst landlord list and whatever. And then, the worst kept secret, I was considering running for mayor. And then there was a little scandal in the Attorney General's office. And, you know, they say you plan and God laughs. Well, I changed my direction and I ran for the office of the Attorney General. And then, as the Attorney General, there were a couple of scandals in State House and a governor who's no more, and there's a president who unfortunately did some bad things. And as the Attorney General who believes in the law, who believes that the law should be used as a force for good, and who believes in the Constitution, and who believes in standing up, and who's not afraid of anyone, and who is guided by a moral force, and who's a church girl, and who's here. Yes.
Is there any support coming from New York State for workforce development programs?
In the state of New York, in the budget, there's some workforce development programs, and so your assembly member and your senator, as a result of this year's budget, they provided some programs for workforce development. And what we need to do is more workforce development housing in the state of New York, which is also critically important, and also to develop trades in the unions for young people, individuals. Not everybody's going to college, let's be honest, and so we need to develop more trades for people so that they can develop much needed skills so that they can too become a part of the middle class, and they too can have a place that they can call home, because home ownership obviously is really key. It is so obvious, it's really essential here in the state of New York, and it's unfortunate that in the state of New York that they could not come to an agreement on housing.
Yes,
very, very disappointed over that, particularly given the number of individuals who are struggling with mental illness right now, who are living on our streets and in our shelters, and young people who are coming back home from school cannot afford a place to live here in the state of New York. Housing needs to be a priority given the number of homeless people here in the state of New York and the struggles with homelessness here in the state of New York. We need housing, and it should be a priority, and mental illness should be a priority.
Yeah.
General, a chance to
Yes.
Many of us would really like to support a regulated recreational marijuana market and not the chaos and Wild West that we have right now. Is your office representing the state in the lawsuits?
Yeah.
And do we have any timetable, particularly here in the Finger Lakes region, where we are the one spot that is still stuck and not moving forward?
Yeah, there's litigation, and as you know, there were other parts of the region that were included in the Finger Lakes region, Brooklyn, Buffalo, and other counties most recently. And it is a wild, wild west out there. And our office has expanded jurisdiction. They expanded our ability to do enforcement with respect to this unregulated market. But I can tell you, it's challenging. I'll be the first one to tell you it is very, very challenging. And with respect to the Finger Lakes, I think we're coming close to a settlement, so that will open up the doors for legal cannabis here in the Finger Lakes. The individual he alleged that in fact he was being discriminated against because he was not a New Yorker, But I think we're close to a settlement, and Finger Lakes, you should be having your first cannabis opening soon.
One more question.
It was over there.
I was angry to that one.
Is that it?
Collaboration.
Anybody else? Going once? Going twice?
I don't have a question, but I would like a picture with you.
Sure.
Selfie? I can't take you home, but I can take the memories.
And you know what else? I just want to tell you lastly, I was at an event, because you just reminded me of them. There were 3 women who were part of the Children's Crusade, who marched over the Edmund Pettus Bridge, who are now in their 60s and 70s.
I've done that too.
Yeah, and these 3 women came to New York City because FDNY was the only fire department in the entire country that said we're not going to use fire hoses on children. And I did not know that. And so there's a proclamation in the fire commissioner's office, dates 1963, that said we will not use fire hoses on humans, on individuals. It's inhumane. And so we commemorated that proclamation, and the 3 women who were part of that crusade joined with the union of FDNY, and they came to say thank you to the union.
Sweet.
Amazing.
Dang.